My name is Yoseph, as Phoebe mentioned, and I'm actually originally from Ethiopia, moved around the world for the last 20-something years. I lived in 4 continents and decided to move to Aotearoa, New Zealand 6.5 years ago, primarily because I couldn't get a visa to stay in the United States. And part of my move to New Zealand was to really reimagine how we transform immigration systems. One, to focus on human potential and global citizenship and not really have monopoly over somebody's time by a nation state, but actually create an environment where people can create value and impact by living global lives. And that journey got me to very randomly but amazingly collaborate with the New Zealand government to design a brand new visa program called the Global Impact Visa, which is designed for and by entrepreneurs and change makers. And it is an initiative that basically allows for global citizenship and people to build bases in different parts of the world and actually be pollinators and connectors, but also leverage New Zealand's unique capabilities as a small, agile environment to experiment. And to give you a sense how all of that happened, there's a couple of years of relationship building and then a conversation with the leaders of the immigration department, and then 12 months from that. During those 12 months, there's basically been hundreds of conversations with people from many different departments and programs, but within 12 months, we had a cabinet paper in front of the cabinet for decision, and 6 months after that, we launched it as a brand new program, which is now called the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. We're running it as a community, a peer-to-peer support ecosystem of creative minds, global leaders from around the world. The youngest fellow we have is 22, oldest is 70, and everybody in between. And these are change makers from every walk of life, working in every industry and sector you can imagine of. And blockchain and crypto has been a major focus for that, because New Zealand's positioning kind of fits really well the values of this technology that we're all building and developing. One, because it's a really friendly regulatory environment and friendly, accessible regulators. That's been through my experience as well. Basically having one of the least corrupt countries in the world, but also one of the most accessible decision makers who are a little bit more functional than the rest of the world and smart and can actually get things done. And that has really given birth to a very innovative environment and ecosystem. And with EHF, what we're doing is getting smart minds from around the world to build ventures, opportunities in New Zealand. And we'll be really fortunate to get some of the really most amazing people in the blockchain ecosystem, from Joey Crook, the founder of Augur, to Fred Ersham, co-founder of Coinbase, Naval Ravikant, as well as Aya from Ethereum Foundation, and so many people. And Phoebe and Lane here are also fellows. We've got many around here as well. But really, one of the key things I'd love for you to kind of think about is one of the things that really stands out for me from a governance lens in New Zealand is a very egalitarian society. And so a lot of the principles of a peer-to-peer ecosystem really works well. Actually, there's a project called Inspiral that was birthed in New Zealand, which is a decentralized community of entrepreneurs and building the tools, not just the technology tools. They actually started by the social tools, the human tools, and then built technology on top of that. And it's been going on for the last 8+ years, and it's really inspired a lot of change within the country and really influencing government and many other parts as well. And so the country's agility and positioning really kind of lends itself to be an experimental environment. We recently just saw a policy that was passed for people to pay salaries with crypto, which has really been amazing. And the Financial Markets Authority has an open door policy for anyone who wants to build a blockchain company, issue tokens and whatever, to basically work with you and help you get set up. And it's a place that has a fast feedback loop, meaning when something is really dysfunctional in society, the society feels the negative effects. When something is functional, we feel the positive effects quite fast. And so it's actually easier to react. And I'm really excited about prototyping new models of economy, but also new models of governance and new models of really merging technology with the human component, and also with the environmental component. Some of the topics we've been hearing the last few days here is around ecology and the environment, and how we've got all of these big issues like climate change and others happening in the background. What are ways the blockchain environment can actually be in service to that? For example, New Zealand has been a leading player in the concept of taking bodies of nature like a river and a mountain and giving it personal legal status. We've got one of our fellows looking at, how do you give shares to a company, of a company to a river and a mountain so that it's got governance roles in your board and can speak for itself. And so there's some really interesting cutting edge experimentations that are happening, which I think really lends itself for this ecosystem. I'll leave it there. We're doing an event tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Door to door. If you're interested in coming and learning more and connecting with many of our fellows, you're welcome to join. I'll stick around if you got any questions. But yeah, that's about me. Yep.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this thing about you said about natural resources speaking for themselves, because they can't, as far as I know. So how does that work?
Well, personally, I believe they do. We just don't listen enough, and our attention span is short. But the way in which they speak in the human world is through councils that represents them. So a lot of that innovation has been led by the indigenous people of the land, the Maori, and they basically have got governance councils that basically speak on behalf of that body of nature. And when I say innovation, it's been something that they've been practicing for hundreds of years, but Western society kind of brought the idea of land ownership and control, which didn't used to exist before. And so they're actually bringing their way of living into the current paradigm, as opposed to bringing something new. There's a lot of opportunity in terms of how that is done. I think the risk that we face here is really kind of looking at innovations like that from a very singular lens, of like, oh, the river, we need to clean up the river, so let's just use one or two pieces of action, as opposed to kind of looking at the health of whole ecology. And they are some of the most holistic thinkers in this space. And if there's anybody interested in this environment, I highly recommend you actually start to work with indigenous communities, because they've been carrying a lot of wisdom in terms of how nature behaves.
Thanks so much, Yoseph. Great. Cool.